So good afternoon and welcome to our after lunch session. This morning you heard from Vicki about how Opportunity is trying to reach many more people and how we're trying to deliver to them new tools and services and equip them to be successful. And then you heard some really specific examples from John and from Nathan in the areas of agriculture and education about what type of programs Opportunity is designing. What we're going to try to do this afternoon is to have a conversation about Opportunity's forward outlook and strategy and how the business model is evolving. So we're going to do that in two ways. First, we're going to have a conversation, and that's going to be kind of around four main topics: the environment and how that's changing, innovation and how it's playing a role in that, partnerships, and then we'll talk about capital as well. That's going to be the first piece. And then after that, we're going to open the floor for questions around those four topics and what you'll have heard, and hopefully we'll be able to answer those questions. So that's the plan. So I'm going to start with you, Mark. And so the first question is about the environment and what changes have you observed in the environment and the field that are influencing the way Opportunity needs and is positioning going forward?
Okay, I'm going to start by is my mic on?
Yes.
I can, okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to start by just stepping back to what Vicki talked about this morning and that evolution of opportunity and evolution of microfinance. And the interesting thing about that is three words come to mind. One is leadership, two is innovation, and three is transformation. In each of those, Opportunity was a market leader, it was innovative, and it was transformational. And a real focus for us the last few years, the last probably 10 to 15 years, has been around deposit taking. And Vicki talked about that this morning. She gave the example of the Malawi and the biometrics in Malawi. And that was really transformational. And the real reason is because people had no place to put their savings. We gave the loan, people would make a little bit of money, but they had no place to put their savings. I remember reading an article, I believe it was in the Financial Times, right about the time that Malawi started, and it was talking about in Africa, the poor only had two choices in most cases of where to put their money. One was in a can or underneath their mattress, and two was to give it to somebody to keep it safe, but in those cases they actually had to pay interest and sometimes up to 25%. And so this gave an opportunity. This was really transformational. What we've seen are two real changes in the landscape over, I would say, the last 5 years. One being really positive and one being a little bit tougher. The first is we've seen the market start to come to us, and that's what you want as an innovator and as a leader. And we've started to see other financial institutions come into the market and want to give this opportunity to the poor to save. And so I was in Malawi earlier this year, and it was fascinating to me because when we started the bank in Malawi and started taking deposits, it was the only option and the only place for people to put their deposits. It's grown, and now there's something like 10 options for people. So the market has come to us. At the same time, what we've seen is the regulation and the need for capital and liquidity really change. And similar to what we've seen in the U.S. in the last 3 or 4 years since the financial crisis, you've seen really throughout the whole world, including developing countries. And so there's this need for increased capital, there's a need for increased liquidity, a need for increased infrastructure, and in some cases, in some of our countries, for example, the need to put in things like anti-money laundering systems, and so which are very expensive. And so there's this need to build out infrastructure to serve clients. And so what we've really said is, okay, through this evolution, we've seen the market come to us. We've seen options for the poor to save. And so what we're really saying is, okay, now let's step back a step. Let's bring in some capital providers to help us increase our capital so we can serve the poor more. And let's also bring in some cases, in a lot of cases, let's bring in different operators who operate banks. So we can really focus on innovation, because running a regulated financial institution, although it was innovative and was really needed, now it starts to hinder you from being transformational and from being real innovative. And so we're really focused on bringing in capital providers, bringing in operators, so we can really focus on being transformational.
So that environment has just completely changed. I think there
Completely
was another
changed.
number I was seeing there is that we look back 40 years ago, there was no MFI. Today, there's about 10,000 MFI around the world. So that's great news. That's great news for us, because now we can talk about innovation and how can we play that? How's opportunity better positioned than anyone else to take advantage of that new environment we can live?
Sure. So I'd begin by maybe building on the comments that I offered this morning and some of Mark's comments as well. That is, the very infrastructure DNA foundation of this organization over 40 years is all about innovation and entrepreneurship. So it's hard to build if you don't have it, but it's easy to build upon if it's a part of the culture. And so we're fortunate that we were founded by two great entrepreneurs. So I'd begin with that, Herve. I then think to the conversation that we just had with Doug and Dick. You've got to get the right people in place to carry that culture forward. We've got to have the right people, processes, and structures to create this culture of innovation. And we have recently changed our organizational structure such that Chris Murdoch, who some of you know and is here, is in charge of strategy and innovation. And so we've separated the work that we're doing from being really caught up in the day-to-day operations such that we can really think about incubating ideas and innovating them. So we're going to incubate some ideas, test them. You heard me mention healing fields. We're testing it now. And I went through a number of examples this morning that really show how innovative we've been, starting with singular loans, group loans, Dia Vicas, Nicaragua, healing fields. So we have a lot of examples. But actually, I would say institutionalizing the concept of innovation and incubation is what we're doing now, and it's for the very reasons, Herve, that you mentioned. We're at a real precipice of change such that we should step into this space and really use our infrastructure in creating and testing new services and programs that serve our clients best. The last thing I'd say, which I think we have done a good job of, but we can always do better, is really listening, and I love what Bob said, and listening very closely to what clients say. And sometimes clients, won't necessarily say what we need to hear. So we have to be very sensitive and very client-focused to really ensure that we provide services that meet their needs.
And that's kind of our unique edge in a lot of ways, is that when we say innovation, we're kind of picturing people in white coats in the lab. But that's not what's happening. It's actually in the field, being directly in contact with clients, that the ideas start to emerge of how we can best serve that need, and then bringing it back and making it kind of a product and a service that we can then disperse.
Absolutely.
All right.
I mean, some of the best ideas that I've seen over the course of my life come from the field. So, if you create an environment and a culture that's safe for people to bring great ideas forth, which we're working on always, then they feel like they can have those bubble up and be presented.
So let's talk a little bit about partnerships now. And so we've realized that we've gone from there's one delivery truck on the road to 10,000 delivery trucks on the road to bring those products and services to clients. How do we intend to use partnership to expand our reach, and what does it mean?
Sure. This to me is fascinating because it's what we're doing is trying to flip the corporate model almost upside down. When you think of the corporate model, you tend to think of your competitors. You want to stay ahead of your competitors. You hear often people talk about you build a moat around your business so competitors can't catch up to you. And often in a corporate world, you talk about you actually are almost hoping that your competitors fail.
Is that what you're doing at B of A?
No. But you're focused on what you're doing, but you're also constantly thinking about your competitors. Here, what we're actually looking at is, okay, we're all in this together. You know, we're not going to do this, what we've talked about, the goals this morning, on our own. And so how do you take advantage of that? And if you think of it, our distribution channel for the last 10 to 15 years has been our MFIs or our financial institutions. And what we're really focused on is partners so we can distribute our products through many more channels. And so let's give you a real life example. If you heard this morning, Bob talked about Nicaragua and the agriculture work that's been done there. It's absolutely amazing. But the work that we've done in Africa, very similar. But if you take that, or if any of you went to the Edge of Finance breakout this morning, again, the work that we're doing there is cutting edge transformational work that really nobody is doing to the extent that we are. And so why limit it to our small distribution channel? Let's distribute it through as many partners as we can. Let's distribute it through that entire 10,000 MFIs that Herve talked about, and let's get it out there. It multiplies what we can do, and we often talk about leverage. This is a way that we can leverage without excess risk, which is really fascinating and really interesting. And so I look at the partnerships as partnerships with other MFIs, partner with other financial institutions, but also partners with social capital funds. There's an enormous amount of capital out there that if we innovate, we can tap into that can accelerate this growth, and that's an area that we're very focused on, is these partnerships.
May I add a comment?
Yes, please.
Did you want to?
No, I was going to, before we talk about capital, I want you to give some examples of other type of partners that we have in terms of services or
Sure.
in terms of, just go ahead.
Yes, so you inspired me to share with you all what we're hearing from our donor community. And it's certainly, well, many of you I've heard from, but also when we talk with great corporate partnerships like Caterpillar is one, which is a wonderful company based here in Illinois and have been a partner of ours for over 20 years. Their major focus right now is around partnerships and around being more efficient and effective in using not only philanthropic dollars, but also social impact dollars, commercial capital. So they're really, really moving us towards and holding us accountable and saying we will only offer you grants if you're partnering with, in the area of agriculture, a water partner, a technical on-the-ground partner, someone that is supplying services in the value chain, if you will. We're going to give you a grant, but you have to show us the partnership model. So it's actually thrilling because back to Mark's comment around competition, this is actually forcing, in a very good way, partnerships within the nonprofit space to work together, and we've got a big goal ahead of us. You know, we plan to eliminate the most severe poverty by 2030. We're going to do that. And I would say in order to actually really effectively do that, we must think of how do we think about partnerships at every turn. I'll finish with a quote. And that is Kevin Compton, many of you know, is a wonderful partner of ours. He is in Silicon Valley and has run several organizations, including being a partner at Kleiner Perkins. And he and I were having this discussion a month or so ago, and he was talking about the value of partnerships from his perspective. And he said, Vicki, let me just give you one thing to think about as you're thinking about the future of opportunity. And he led the Banking on Africa program some years back, raised $125 million with many of you. And he said, my advice to you is this, and this is the advice I'm saying to people I work with. Own if you must, and partner when you can. And so that's really, I think, very sound advice.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that leads us to capital. So all that sounds great. There's many more access or distribution vehicles to bring our products or services, a lot of innovation opportunities for us based on our own experience. And then there is also all these partners that want to work with us, and you mentioned that in some of your recent meetings you had. So does that mean that there's all the social capital that wants to play in our field with us? Does that mean there's no need for donors' money anymore?
Are you kidding? Is that a serious question? Are you asking me that?
Yes.
I'm only joking.
No, but how is it changing, and
Yeah.
how do we put all those pieces together from a capital standpoint?
So I'll address that, and then maybe we can talk about it together. So there will always be a need for philanthropic capital. And I would say from many perspectives, we need this community of people involved in our work because you're important in not only providing money, but in providing thought leadership, in providing partnerships. And so taking you with us in this journey is really important. And you provide oftentimes a level of equity and capital that allows us, depending upon where you want to give, an opportunity to test new things, an opportunity to grow. Many of you all are passionately involved in the things we've talked about today, education and agriculture. Many of you are passionately involved in technology. Some of you are getting more involved in women's issues and in the issues of women's health. So I would say that is really an important focus of strategy for us to continue, not just where we are around philanthropic capital, but building it out so that we have more partnerships with corporations, which I've talked a bit about.
Right. So, and I want to bring back some of the good news I gave earlier, saying there's 10,000 delivery trucks on the road. When you talk then to some of the microfinance rating organizations that are out there, now there's a number of them that actually evaluate all those delivery vehicles. They said out of the 10,000, there's only about 500 that are fundable, in their opinion. And so all the social capital and investment funds that we're talking about, they're going to rely on those ratings and those evaluations to say who do we want to actually provide funds to. So I think for us, even though there's lots of them, we know there are some of those delivery trucks that are going to run out of fuel. They're not well maintained. The wheels are going to come off, or their values are not aligned with ours. So our partnership selection process is going to be very selective, and there's only some of them where we'll be able to marry that social capital with them. And there are areas where that social capital is not going to want to go because it's too risky or too entrepreneurial, and I think that's where we need to also provide some catalyst capital that can only come from donors' funds.
Agreed.
So I think it's the balance of all those sources of capital that we're going to have to manage into a creative and intelligent way going forward. Mark, is there anything more you want to add?
The
to
only
that?
thing I would add is, and I talked a second about impact. I mean, to me, if you remember the last slide that Vicki showed this morning, and it was the curve, and you could see that curve accelerating. To me, we're at a point where we could see this accelerate tremendously, kind of exponentially. And so to me, this is probably the most important time for donor capital and outside capital so that we actually can have that acceleration. We're at a point where we have that opportunity, and it's probably more important than ever.
Agreed.
Right. So I'm going to summarize that before we open for a question. So in a sense, what I'm hearing is that a part of the evolution that we're entering is that we're evolving from largely operating some of those delivery trucks to knowing that there's a lot of them available, and we just need to work with them, and with what we'll also continue to have, to both deliver better products and more products to our clients to create impact, and to provide tools to those other MFIs to improve what they do. So in terms of measurement systems, in terms of technology to improve delivery and so forth. So that's kind of the shift that is part of the new direction for opportunity. So on that note, let's open for questions.
Perfect.
Do we have mics? Yeah, can we get some mics, please? That'd be.
Given the importance of partnerships going forward, question for you is, do you feel that you have the capabilities and capacity internally at Opportunity International to achieve your vision and the partnerships that you want to develop?
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll speak about that from let me say a CEO perspective, and then these gentlemen can speak about it from a board perspective. The answer to the question is yes and no. We do have extraordinarily talented people on our team and within Opportunity, and that has only been exponentially blown out as a result of the fact that we've come together as a global network in the last year, and now we have access to very, very talented people around the world, whereas before we were separated and we were in silos. And so, we have visibility through the People Committee to look at what is the talent like in Australia and the UK and Canada and Germany, Hong Kong, and in the United States. And that is really a wonderful opportunity to look at, do we have the right skills and talents available? Knowing that we're moving more towards a partnership model, it's going to require a different set of skills and more towards innovation. And so we know that. We're laying out a different organization for the future that will really address those issues, getting more specific around what product lines are we going to be focused on, and ensuring that we've got the very best and brightest people to lead that work. So in full disclosure, yes, we do have some great people. The global organization has allowed us to take a look at least an initial look at that, those capabilities, but we know that if we're going to continue to grow at this rate that we're talking about, we're going to have to continue to make sure that we have the right people.
Yeah.
Just add, it's not new to Opportunity, so
Yeah.
that's the good news. And in particular, there was some mention this morning of Diavicus. It's the perfect example of where the team has been able to deliver incredible product and services in the hands of clients through and in partnership with MFIs that we don't control and run. And there's 20, 30 of them. So there's a lot of experience that we can build upon to continue to develop that skill set.
And I would say from a skill set and a product standpoint, that we have some incredible products and some incredible opportunities. The Edge of Finance, perfect. Those of you who listened to Nathan or who met Nathan, he is an incredible talent. You listen to what he's doing. You talk to external sources, some of the social impact funds that he's talking to, and they will tell you he's best in class, and what we're doing is best in class. So I would say definitely on products, definitely on people. There will be some slight changes like Vicki talked about. I actually worry, and going back to the last question, is I think the constraining factor is going to be capital. And that's why I said I think it's incredibly important that now is the time from a capital perspective, because I actually think we have products that could be, I mean, just one more thing on the education. To me, the education is fascinating, because not only is Opportunity making loans to people for jobs, but they're also making, to start the schools, they're training in how to run the schools, and they're giving loans to families to put their kids through schools, which in the end is going to make the biggest difference of all in poverty. And I really look at that as incredibly transformational. And I think we've, you know, like I said, I think we've got a fantastic team and some fantastic products.
Other questions?
Yeah, I wanted to pick up on the innovation idea. Innovation means that you're developing intellectual property. And so could you talk a little bit about to what degree it becomes proprietary as a continuing funding mechanism for Opportunity, and to what degree you and how you spread it around to other organizations?
Do you want to?
Do you want to take that? I can take it if you want. So absolutely, that's a great point. And that's a great source for us to build sustainable programs. So build the intellectual property and get paid as we distribute those products through channels that are not ours, is get paid the fees to be able to not only deliver the service, but also continue to improve it. So that's definitely part of the model. And just as important as the IP is maintain close contacts with the clients so we can learn from the client's experience with those products and continue to improve those products so they remain best in class.
You just mentioned that capital is the thing that matters. And also this morning we heard about the $400 million, and that's probably an upper bound. And Vicki, you stated that all gifts matter, not just the huge ones. But is there kind of a distributional thing? Is there some kind of argument that, oh, I can make that says, hey, the $1,000 gift matters because there are a lot of them, or
Yeah.
even the $50,000 gift matters because there are a whole bunch of them? Or is it just the 400 million is swamping the smaller amounts?
Yeah. So let me be perfectly clear. I mean, all gifts matter. We've had a very big focus this year, which let me just say, when I stepped into the role, I spent about 90 days in the middle of fundraising season touring and speaking with many of you and meeting with clients and really developing a sense of what was going on in the organization, what were the areas of focus that we really needed to address. And one thing that came out loud and clear from our donors, really important donors that had been with us for a long time, is you need to grow this donor base. There are those of us who've been around a long time, we love the organization, but we're concerned that we're not broad enough. And not only do you need to grow the donor base from an individual perspective, but you need to grow it from a corporate perspective, because corporations have a lot of money, and we talked about that earlier today, that they will be investing as we think about hunger, water, the big social issues. These corporations, if you can align your strategy with them, they will invest with you. And so I would offer a couple of thoughts to answer your question. And I want to stay on this thing about corporate for a minute. We clearly are a great fit for financial services organizations and corporations. Do we all agree on that? Mm-hmm. So if you line up the strategy around Opportunity with all the major financial services organizations and you pitch to the right people, you're going to get a commitment. I would also offer that we're a great fit today for people that are really focused on education, to Mark's point and to Nathan's point and all that. And they love what we're doing. I mean, we're just actually covered up in people, both individuals and corporations and institutions that want to get involved with us because of the plan that we have. I would also offer that if you look at our farming programs and what we see for the future, you could go and talk to any organization that's involved in food, in the food industry, and we match really well. So I'm going to wrap this up by saying, from a donor community perspective, we still have too few donors. They are growing. We are growing our corporate involvement. We need to. The majority of the donors who've been with us for a while are saying, I want to continue to give to you philanthropically, but oh, by the way, Vicki, I also want you all to begin to think about some social impact funding because I want to do both.
Right.
And I think that's very important. And then I think there is a market where we really want to have exponential growth, that we want to get commercial capital involved in helping us. To Mark's point, to my point, if we really want to see that curve go up, we want to exceed those 20 million jobs, 100 million people by 2020, which I think we can exceed, we're going to have all three layers of capital to help us do that. Does that answer your question?
And I'm going to make an argument that the $1,000 gift and the $15,000 gift are actually more important than the $400 million gift. Well, it's not a gift first, the $400 million pool.
Yeah.
Because without those $1,000 and $15,000 gifts, we cannot develop the programs
That's right.
and the products to a point where they are designed and tested and vetted so they can access that pool of capital. They will not come to something that has not reached a real level of maturity because they want low risk. And by nature, you can't take it through that curve with their capital. So that first piece is essential to us.
Yeah, I want to make one other point. I'm sorry, you got me on a roll here. And that is the other, which is exciting. The other thing that we need to develop and work on, and we are, is really reaching out to millennials. They care deeply about all the issues that we're talking about here. And so I'm looking at my children and I'm listening to what they're saying, and many of your children as well. They're an important target for us, and they really want to interface, as we heard from Doug, through the internet, through online. And so an important thing for us to continue to develop, and I want to thank those of you in the room who've helped us with our digital strategy, is to continue to develop a way that we can communicate with millennials through the internet and through opportunity.org. Thank you.
It's on when I, okay. So thank you very much, and that was a nice segue to my question and tailgating over my friend here, tagging on to my friend here. So how do you, one of the things you said this morning, Vicki, that resonated with me is that, and I might have it slightly wrong, 98% of people don't see the impact, which is a challenge. They don't see it actually come to fruition. So as you're talking about donors, you're talking about giving at every level, you're talking about millennials. I'll take it down to my daughters are tweens. How do you close the gap, the divide between Africa to Northside Chicago? How do you, so that people get the impact of the dollar, whether a child is giving or a parent is giving, so that individual, corporate, and foundations are donating, but not, an insight trip isn't practical for everybody. So how do you make it real when you're asking people to go into their pocketbooks?
So I'll take a stab at that, and then you all jump in as well. So clearly, what we're doing here is an important way of touching new people in our community. So 50% of this audience is new to our work. And face-to-face communication continues to be really important. So I would offer that is very important, and we've selected some key cities that we want to get more involved in. We want to build out. We have actually a really great model in Minneapolis where we have per capita more giving in Minneapolis than any other city in the country. And so looking at best practice around what is happening with regard to Minneapolis is what we're doing here in the city of Chicago. And one of the reasons that we moved downtown, which we've gotten great response from this audience, is really to get more involved in every aspect of being in the city of Chicago to build on that center of excellence. That's one thing. We clearly need to do more marketing than we are doing in selective places, and that is something that we are working on now that we've got the global organization in place and operating and functioning well. The internet strategy is a very, very important strategy for the millennials, is the third piece of what I would say. And this is an interesting, organization in that it is a community of people. And so we look to all of you to invite your networks of people into our work, because you're right, we cannot all go on inside trips. Bringing our clients into our work, and you'll see some of them later today, is an important piece of what we do as well. And then the final thing I'll say, and it's a part of the marketing, it's a very, very much part of the marketing work, is to co-brand ourselves with great companies, whether they be small to medium-sized great companies and or larger companies through cause-related marketing, which is what Doug was talking about, is a great way to get your message out with very, very little cost. So cause-related marketing is something we're working on. And you know, my experience in this work, and I'll wrap this up, is if we get one or two major breakthroughs with a company like Caterpillar or a company like Unilever, which we're working on both of those, it exponentially goes up. So you get your brand out, you're co-branded on tea, for instance, and it talks about smallholder farmers that we're supporting through opportunity, and Unilever supports, and all of a sudden the name of the organization, the mission of the organization, the vision for the organization is branded with a great company like Unilever. Those are the plans.
Vicki, I mean, just add one thing. I think there's another tool that Opportunity is developing is our social performance measurement and management system. I think that, and I don't know if there's some of the brochures that are already available here, but Opportunity is being seen as a leader in that field, which is wonderful by, you know, a lot of independent organizations, and communicating those numbers as they come back in terms of deep quantitative measurement of how our clients' lives have changed. It's very different. It's not as emotional as an trip or even a client story, but it really brings to proof that the money that's being invested by you is well used and is delivering the results that we're saying it does. And that's available. It's going to be more and more available.
I thought of one other thing. Do you want to say anything?
No, go ahead.
Because I will. And that is, the media is really important. Really, really important. So I'm thinking back to your question. I can't see you because these lights are crazy bright up here. But I see your hands. But you know, so I was quoting that article, that editorial yesterday, and I think it was yesterday in the New York Times, from Nicholas Kristof, who wrote the book with his wife called Half the Sky. And so we cannot underestimate the importance of appropriately utilizing the media. And we need to be in front of the media. We need to be doing interviews about who we are. We need to be talking about things getting better. We need to do that individually. We need to do that cooperatively with other partners. We need to be involved in meetings like those that I spoke about with regard to the Bush Institute and the Clinton Global Initiative, because that is when you can come together and really get a very broad message out that things are improving. And this is not like a deep, dark hole that there's no point of investing in. So media is really important.
I have a question relating to sustainability of the current infrastructure we have in place, and especially with Mark up there. In light of the increasing regulation of the financial industry, can you speak a little bit to how we're managing our existing banks in those 28 countries and the increased cost and potential restrictions that have been placed, and how we're managing through that?
I'll take that one. You know, and it's exactly, I talked earlier about we're really doing two things different. One is bringing in capital and capital partners to our banks, and bringing in a lot of cases, bringing in operators. And we're doing that because of that sustainability issue that you talked about. The increase, again, similar to what you're seeing in the U.S., except that you're not really making money in these banks. Your increased cost is rising just at an incredible rate. The systems you need, the infrastructure you need, the increased capital, the increased liquidity. And so that's why we're bringing in these in these capital partners and people to help us on the the operating side, so that we can continue to be sustainable and so that we can grow. Because what this also does is this will constrain us if we don't make these changes, and that's why we're making these changes.
So strengthening the banks with capital and with operating skills from
Yes.
partners
Capacity.
that have really, that have the ability to do that with scale better than we can.
Yeah.
So the asset that we've built are wonderful assets, but for them to continue to be sustainable with the environment, the regulatory environment, we need those partnerships.
Yes.
Yeah, Vicki, I wanted to go back to the 400 million versus the 1,000, 50,000, et cetera. And I think it's important that one of you clarify they're completely different kinds of funding, that they're not the same kind of dollars. So I'd suggest maybe go back to that and clarify that, because a lot of people may not understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Herve?
Herve.
So the social investment funds, they are investors. So they'll invest our money they invest their money with our products, but they want it back with a return. So it can only be effective if the products that we marry that with are very reliable and allow for their money to come back to them and be reinvested eventually. So it's more like working capital than here's money for you to do whatever you want with. So that's a huge difference. And the amount of accountability that comes with it, the amount of trust, the amount of support services that it is not, de minimis. So we need to be conscious of that, but at the same time, I think to reach all the people we want to reach, once we have product and services that are suited for that, it becomes incredibly powerful. Does that answer your question, Warren?
Yeah, and I had thought about the donor money is more like equity.
The donor money is more like equity. Like I said, I don't know if I used that word, but I think it's catalyst capital that we can bring alongside to make this happen, and also to go in places where we know they won't want to go for whatever reason, and where the need is also great.
And an important point that you made earlier is, without the donor money, you can't ever get to the other. And so I think that's a very important point,
I
too.
do too. No, it's really important. Thank you, Warren.
I'm excited about what I hear in the partnerships. I think that's right. There's one thing that gives me cause to pause. This morning in the 101, and Vicki, and what you presented, we listed our motivation, that we are motivated by what we do, by Christ's call to love and serve the poor. As I understand it, as we partner with financial service organizations, the loan officers are not ours, they're theirs. Can we assume that they will have the same motivation? Up to this point, we have said that the key employee we have is the loan officer and the relationship they develop with the client, and that's not only financially, but socially and spiritually.
Right.
Are we losing something?
So, great question, and thank you for bringing it up. So, our vision for the future, as far as your great question is concerned, is that to partner with organizations that share our values, that are mission aligned with us, that can provide the kind of capital that Mark and Herve are talking about, will reinforce our financial institutions. We intend to remain very involved from a position of being both the shareholder in a parent company and then on the ground. And then our intent as well is to set up nonprofit organizations right beside those institutions that will actually allow us to do more than we're doing today around the area of spiritual transformation, around the area of social transformation, around the area of really focusing our attention on implementing education, implementing the agriculture programs that we're talking about. And I would simply say that, and Mark can talk much more eloquently than I can about the interference that those kinds of programs can actually have when you get involved in trying to run commercially focused institutions. And so we have a really great example of how we're doing that brilliantly today in Colombia. We've got a wonderful bank. They focus on what they're doing as far as financial services is concerned. We've got an NGO right beside it that focuses on all the things that I just mentioned. And oh, by the way, it gives us an opportunity to do more thinking, research, testing, innovation around other needs of clients that we're not focused on today. Does that answer your question?
I'll one, Mark,
And
you go first.
I was just going to say I would agree 100%. I think the key is this actually improves our ability to do that.
Yep.
Not only are we partnering with like-minded other institutions, but having this entity on the side that works with them, it improves our ability to do it tremendously. But really focusing on transformation while running a regulated financial institution is incredibly hard. Having it on the side improves our ability to do it, and that's one of the reasons why we're looking at this.
And as a board member, from a board perspective, always going back to our mission and values and what's driving, what we want to do and why we want to do it, that's fundamental. So when I joined the board, I had the exact same questions and I had the exact same doubt. And honestly, I think until I became a lot more familiar and experienced what they're doing with GBICS in India, I was not convinced. But that really, I saw how they're able to do it there and how over time, there are some of the MFIs where they have said, we're not going to work with you anymore because even though when we vetted you, we felt that we were aligned, now you've drifted. And then you stop cooperating with these people. So there's a constant ongoing monitoring of that aspect, and that's critical to keep that independence. Maybe one last question?
Yeah, I was wondering if the mother that was right in here with the mother of the tweens, if she could stand up for a second. I just wanted to talk about something very mundane. I'm 59. I'm not these wonderful 20-year-olds, and I've been with Opportunity for 25 years. But, as I have always been an Opportunity supporter, her question really struck me, and I'll tell you why. I also, I raised 3 daughters, and we did this thing called Compassion International. You've probably all heard of it, where you have the child's picture on your refrigerator. And I got this vision of Caterpillar and Avon and all these people, Vicki and all you guys are talking about, all these corporations around the world. What if they had Dawn Feller's cards? And even more specifically, what if they had a face? And so her daughters, what are your daughters' names? Give us their names.
Olivia and Anna Sophia.
So what if Olivia and Anna Sophia, they were connected in Uganda with these 2 little girls here holding the corn. And so every day they came to the refrigerator, Mommy, let's say a little prayer for these 2 little girls carrying the corn. And, and then I got 2 grandbabies, and they come into my house and they say, Gigi, where's the boy you sponsored? Where's his picture? Why can't I see it? And we bring it down and we pray for him. Now, I'm old school, you guys. I may be the only one in the room that cares about looking at that little boy that I sponsor. And maybe it's not effective, but I'm also seeing it from the Downtown Rescue Mission. Now they're not just asking for money, they're asking for me to sign a place card where the person will sit at the Thanksgiving dinner, and on the placemat it will say, Jody gave a gift for you to have this meal. I've got to go back to whether we should even be giving the gifts at Thanksgiving and all that. But anyway, the whole point is, what if Caterpillar and Avon, and you walk into Walgreens and you've got the pictures all over Walgreens, would you want to give $1 to So, put your foot up on the, the Alzheimer's list or whatever it is. But what if we had Opportunity International, all over the place in Caterpillar and Avon and all these big corporations and all over Chicago, and every block you'd walk into right over there across the street and you'd see, oh wow, there's a lady carrying corn on her head, Okay, so I'm going to stop rambling, so maybe it's a dumb idea.
Thank you.
So,
Vicki, go ahead, yeah.
sure.
Can I just mention the one-on-one because it speaks to that point, and since Jenny here is and Abby, the partnership that every time, it's just another corporate partnership, but it's very grassroots. Just started in the last season. Every time a new consultant signs up with our old-fashioned consulting company, they are paired with an entire microloan. And do you want to just speak?
No, I want you to speak to this because you know what? You are our
well, it's the
customer.
most exciting thing, and it's part of some of the reason we do this. Jenny and I are consultants, and they started a new program, and Vicki came and spoke to our convention, that every new consultant that signs on with Cabby, we're funding a microloan entirely, so the new rep gets the profile of the woman, and forevermore, she will be running an entrepreneurship side by side.
So, so it's fabulous. So we love Cabby and Cabby Consultants. And so to answer your question, it's a great comment. I agree with you 100%. This is a test that we're doing with Cabby, which is going incredibly well. The consultants love being connected, as do most people, directly with clients. We want to make sure that we can deliver on our promise to that commitment. And so I would close with saying a great test with Cabby. It's going very well. As we have all been discussing here, building partnerships like the ones we're talking about, and the one I'm thinking about now would provide better technology so we can get to those client stories easier than we're currently getting to them, so we can share them more readily, is what the future looks like. So that is a great way to close why it's important to partner.
May I just one more
Please,
thing?
you're in charge.
I mean, what you just said also brings to my mind something important, I think. Opportunity is not just looking for your donation, but we know you're all great people of faith. So your prayers for our organization and for our clients is also incredibly powerful. So if somehow we can find a way to better connect with you all so that you can reinforce our action with your prayers, I think that would be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. What's next?